Hi, Topics class. This is Alana Boyd, and I am doing my videos on African Americans in the Civil War. Um, so, African Americans uh, in this during this time period they weren't, especially in the South. Slaves were forced to put on uniforms and fight for the South, even if they didn't want to, because the the South realized how many because of the fact that slaves were free in the North, um, they made slaves in the South put on uniforms and fight because they knew they'd be outnumbered just due to the overwhelming amount of people willing to fight in the North. So there were two general reasons why African Americans were soldiers. The first is mainly focused on um, slaves in slaves in the South. They were forced to because of the South realizing their disadvantage, and the North, more blacks were willing because they were fighting because the North may have had more soldiers because they had a greater sense of hope. If the North won the war, then the slaves would be free since the North was against slavery. So those are two reasons why blacks were soldiers. So what happened after the war? Well, or as you can see here, there were a number. The Union had a huge advantage over the Confederacy due to black soldiers fighting willingly in the war. So what happened after the war? Well, there were a lot of legal issues. First of all, the Union victory in the Civil War gave about 4 million slaves their freedom. The next question for African Americans was their status in the South, which was a very unresolved issue. Under the lenient Reconstruction policies of President Andrew Johnson, white Southerners reestablished civil authority in the former Confederate states between 1865 and 1866. They created a series of restricted laws known as the Black Codes. So Black Codes were basically laws that had the intent and the effect of restricting African Americans' freedom and of compelling them to work in a labor economy based on low wages or debt. Um, there were five main things that the Black Codes how the Black Codes affected Black people in the South. Blacks still couldn't vote. They couldn't join. They couldn't join the militia. They couldn't testify. Different states had different rules based on, or the black codes were different per state. For example, in Georgia, there would be something different than something in than black codes in Alabama. And finally, some certain black codes banned blacks from specific states. And Jim Crow laws they're very similar to black codes. Um, the only difference is that it Jim Crow laws led more to segregation than to simply banning blacks from states such as the Black Codes did. With Jim Crow laws, they were racial segregation state and local laws enacted after the Reconstruction period in the southern United States that continued in force until 1965, mandating that racial segregation in all public facilities in southern U.S. states of the former Confederacy, starting in 1890 with a separate but equal status for African Americans. As you can see in the picture, there's a restroom sign pointing to one for whites and one for coloreds. Um, this this type of segregation was implemented with water fountains. They had black schools, or they had certain or no, there were certain for on public transit, blacks had to go to the back of the bus for with Rosa Parks. That's one thing she's famous for. She decided not to move from where she was sitting on the bus. And so yeah, Jim Crow laws were based on racial segregation, and black codes were more general. They weren't focused on one way to restrict blacks. They kind of were a blanket statement that was trying to eliminate black significance and eliminate their ability to um, represent themselves within the United States. Thank you for watching.